Today I'm going to be doing a deep dive into Florian Unruh's technique. Now this has been quite a widely requested video since I've been doing some videos on Ansan and Kim Woo-jin, Oh Jin-hyek to name a few. So I've covered a couple of Korean archers who have got maybe more conventional techniques, but quite a few people have asked, can you cover Florian's technique because he draws in quite a different way? So that's what we're going to be looking at today, and we're going to get right into it. So to begin with, rather than looking at the drawing in a unique way to start with, I want to cover a few points that Florian does that are kind of normal, if you like, or they're very similar to most other archers, because actually, as I've said with Oh Jin-hyek, the draw is not the most important part. This is the thing. The draw is only to get you to the end position where you can do a clean shot. So, although it might look unconventional, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's a means to an end, and this is what I want to show you. So let's start off with, the first thing I want to show you here is this kind of freeze frame that I've got. So you can see in this position, if I kind of zoom in for you, and we just look here, look to the position that Florian has drawn slightly under the chin. You can see, if I get the brush here, just under the chin. And this is quite important because this little gap here, I've mentioned before, it doesn't have to be that amount. Some people do it a lot more. Jean-Charles Valadon obviously goes really a lot lower, that kind of French style draw. But when you're doing the draw, if you can have some sort of distance between the chin, it basically helps you when you're drawing. If I go to the full screen now, it helps you when you're drawing. If you're drawing slightly down here and then going up, it helps you to come around with your scapula and engage that as you're drawing in. If you try and come exactly to your chin here, if you, for example, when you're doing the draw here, if you tried to go exactly to the chin, and I'll just go here, if you tried to go exactly to the chin here, you're not going to have that draw into the neck that I've mentioned so many times, and that helps you get that scapula round, helps you bring your draw elbow round, which we'll have a look at in a second. And this is what I wanted to mention here. So this kind of drawing below the chin and then up to anchor, that is really, really great, and I want to highlight that because people get carried away with the draw looking a little bit different in the early stages. The next thing I want to look at is the execution. So I've got a different video for this, which is this one. I think maybe actually it's the same video. It's the same video, just a different angle. It is the same video because this is from the, I think this is the World Games, this one, but there's an angle at the back here that I wanted to show. So we're going to zoom in here, and I just want to show again. So we talked about just now drawing below and that bringing the elbow round, and now again this is becoming quite a common theme in, if you've watched the recent couple of videos in this series, the elbow position here, you can see, yes, we're off to an angle, so we can see here that limb center is here, and then we've got the string center slightly to the side, so we can't gauge exactly this elbow line. We can't gauge if it's directly behind the string, but we can pretty much see that it's quite good. We'd have to get a directly behind angle to kind of check that fully, but we can see with the elbow here, and by the kind of staggered how much the lines are moving across as we draw them, that it's pretty aligned. So again, this is what I want to say is, yes, the draw is different, but the key aspects of the shot, for example, drawing into anchor, the alignment of full draw, particularly of this draw elbow, is really good. And now also, what I wanted to cover is this execution. So what we're going to do, this might take a little bit of seeing, but I want to show you frame by frame what's going on here. So we're just going to get to the part where the release happens, and classic there, it cuts to another shot. So there's a couple of shots on this one, but there are some that are captured on camera. So let's look at this one. So we're going to go frame by frame, and let's look at the very moment that the arrow leaves the bow. So if we look here very closely, I think I'm going to zoom in even more for you. So let's look very closely at this elbow. I'm going to move the frame now. So you can see here, I think I need to zoom out one more for you. And let's go back very slightly. So here, moving frame by frame, and then we're about to shoot in a second here. So this frame here, that tiny movement here, that's the first part of the movement when the fingers are opening. You can't see that because of the angle, but that's when the fingers are opening. and then the elbow goes back. So there's just basically absolutely perfect execution here. I mean, there's the tiniest relaxation of the forearm, but look at the elbow. The elbow doesn't really go, there's a tiny bit forwards. But bear in mind, this is field, so different angles. This is a final, so a lot of pressure. This is basically incredible execution. This is what I wanted to show. And this actually is probably the worst shot from this angle. The other one before it was even better. So if we go, I think it was the one before. If we go to, again, we'll scroll back. We'll go to the one before. And maybe it was the angle before. It was the one after, sorry. So we'll go to that one, and then that's the one that cut. And then the one after here, this one, I mean, the execution here is really, really good. So this is why I wanted to show it. So we've zoomed right in again, and I'll just zoom out a bit so it's not so pixelated. And we're going to just scroll through. So we're just going to get to the point where the release happens. And then we're going to go to here and frame by frame. So here, there's just the tiniest bit of movement and then back with the execution. So this is what I wanted to show, is even though the draw parts are different, the execution is incredible. Just for reference, let's have a look here. We can actually scroll across. So we watch those shots here. Let's watch Brady's execution, just for reference here. And we'll scroll across and we'll go here. I'm just going to scroll to the very moment of execution for you, and let's go here. And then frame by frame. Look at, so I'm not saying Brady's not shooting well. This isn't his best shot, to be fair, but we compare the execution just now that we saw from Florian, which was so strong. Maybe the very tiniest bit going forwards, but that is being ultimately picky, and it doesn't matter at that point. That execution is very strong. But you can see here, there's clearly a bit of collapse here. It's quite evident, especially on the draw elbow here. There's quite a bit of collapse, and there's definitely a difference in the execution between the two archers here. You can see. I'll just play it through one more time so you can see. So we're getting there, and you can see there's a bit of a loss of tension and then the release. So that wasn't Brady's best shot, and let's see where it went. I mean, it was a 5. You know, this is field, so 5 is decent. But actually also looking at this end, I mean, you'll see this end, if we scroll to the finish, you can also see that execution of Florian's that I mentioned is really, I mean, Brady's got 6-5-4 here, Florian's just got this incredible group in the middle. So this execution I wanted to highlight as being super, super good. Now, let's talk about the draw. So there's a lot to get into with this draw, and also from this video is where I want to kind of start showing it. Before I do though, I forgot. So this video today is not going to be the full version. There's a couple more things I want to talk about, but it's going to get a bit long. So if you want to watch the full version, you can actually join my membership here, which I wanted to talk about. So if I bring this up here, just so you can see, you can actually join and become a member. And this is what I'd really recommend. So you can join my community, get everything on this page here, plus the full-length video that I talked about here. I'm going to cover a little bit more on Florian's hook, because you can see hook's a little bit deeper than most archers. And there's also a couple more things that I want to cover in the videos just for my members as well. But not only do you get that, you also get access to every single technique guide on my website. You can send questions for Q&As. You get tips from some of the world's best archers. You unlock my email tips archive. There's no contract. You can cancel anytime. It's just £2.99 a month. And you also get, if we go here to the training, you get access to every single one of these drills and resources here. So all of these drills on this library, I mean, you get literally everything, just £2.99 a month. I mentioned there my email list as well. If you haven't already, go to the homepage here, onlinearcheryacademy.com, pop your email address in here, and if you don't want to sign up for the membership at the moment, that's your choice, obviously. You're mad, but that's your choice. It's absolutely incredible, the membership and the community. But I also send a free weekly email newsletter with 3 tips here. So you can sign up for that completely free. If you haven't done that already, definitely recommend it. And lastly, before we get back to the video, I just want to mention my Online Archery Academy video courses. There are 2 courses, a recurve beginners course and a recurve advanced course here. The advanced course is by far the most comprehensive one, but obviously you will know if you want the beginner course or the advanced, or there's a bundle for both. But I just want to show you a couple of things in here. We literally cover every single thing, step-by-step detail. I'll coach you through every stage of the shot, and you can see there's some testimonials on the website that I'll let you read yourself as well, but we literally cover everything here. Stance, open stance, square stance, choosing your stance, how to hook, how to draw, how to do your set position, how to get your alignment, how to train, how to troubleshoot, literally every single thing you could possibly want to know. So if you haven't checked out my courses already, there'll be a special link in the description and the comment section below with a little discount for you as well. If you haven't checked out my membership, definitely join that as well, because that is incredible. And for now as well, I want to get back to the video on this special kind of set and set up position that Florian does. So the main difference here, if we raise up here, I want to show you the drawing part. This clip doesn't have it, but if we go to a previous, I think the early clips in this video do have it really nicely. And the reason I chose this field video is because they don't cut the camera angles as much, because they have to keep watching both archers. The ones on the target videos are a little bit hard to follow. So you'll see here, first of all, let's zoom in. Florian gets his hook really secure around the string, which I want to talk about, like I mentioned, for my members. I want to talk about that a little bit more, and this slightly deeper hook than normal. And then when he raises, this is the key thing, his front arm is very bent, and he hasn't set his hook here, his grip, sorry. So this is something, normally I kind of pay a lot of attention to this, and I mention a lot of the time, for most people you want to set your grip quite early and get that solid. But this is an interesting trade-off, and I think we're going to see more archers starting to do this as we progress over the next few years, because this is essentially a trade-off, and this is what I want to describe today. So at some point, I assume, Florian has found that his hook makes a really big difference and he really needs to get that secure. So having his bow close into him here, as you can see, it's close into his body, allows him to get his hook secure. And then with his arm bent, he raises and his hand is not set yet. We'll switch to another angle in a minute to show that. But the key thing here with the bent arm, you can see here, this is really the kind of secret to this draw. We have the bent arm here, and we have the hook on the string. What this allows Florian, and also a couple of other archers to do, if you watch Lee Sung-Yun shoot, he does this a little bit as well. If you watch Alan Wills from Great Britain shoot from maybe like 2008 to 2012, there's some videos on YouTube, he does something similar. But this bent arm here, with the hook here, what this allows Florian to do is raise up and have a shortish pre-draw. So what I mean by that is the amount of tension on the string here. There's not a lot of tension, the pre-draw is quite short. It allows him to do that whilst keeping the connection here and his arm fairly back and his elbow fairly back. Crucially, keeping, if we go here, this shoulder in a bit more of a open, less compressed position. So what do I mean by that? Let's go to the other angle here to show you. If I move back slightly, and this is what I want to show you here. If I raise up the bow, we'll just angle this down for you. If I raise up the bow like this, and I just keep this shoulder relaxed and I raise here, my arm, my hand is just here. If I want a shorter pre-draw, this is going to put a certain amount of weight on the string, and I'm drawing the bow a certain amount. If I want to lower that amount, there's two choices. I can move this hand forwards towards the target, or I can move my bow hand towards me. Most people previously have chosen to move their draw hand towards the target. As an example of this, I've got a video of Lee Woo-suk here that we're going to bring up. So this is an example of the other way around of doing it. So you can see here a similar-ish sort of pre-draw in terms of the length of how much draw there is here. This amount of distance of the pre-draw is quite similar. If we go back to here again, you can see this similarity. But look at the shoulder position difference. This, as a result of this, because this draw hand here has had to go so far forwards like this in order to get that pre-draw and not draw too much, this draw shoulder has had to reach quite forwards. Now, for some people that's fine. Lee Woo-suk obviously can do that, and he does that very, very successfully. However, this is a key thing. This is about knowing your body and experimenting with different things, and this is why it's really good to have a coach that knows what they're talking about and knows the different kind of pros and cons of each thing when you're learning. Because I would argue, I'm pretty sure I would have thought at some point Florian maybe tried this when he started shooting, maybe, for example. But not only Florian, a lot of other archers might find this is too difficult on the draw shoulder joint. It is quite a compressed position. If I go back to this full screen webcam here as well, so you can see, if I go to this position, I mean, this, even without a bow, this feels a little bit kind of stretched to me, and I had some joint issues from shooting kind of because of that, because I had a shorter pre-draw in the kind of early days of my training career. So this is where it's really important to kind of weigh up the pros and cons of each method, because clearly if we made Iwo Suk shoot like Florian, it's probably not going to be the best thing. Likewise, if we made Florian shoot like Iwo Suk, also probably not going to be the best thing. And this is why you have to be a little bit careful with when you see Korean archers that shoot a certain way. There's a certain amount of selection bias in that. Oh Jin-hyek is a little bit of an exception, but because maybe they've been trained a certain way when they were young, and maybe they were forced into that way, maybe there might be a Korean archer who could have benefited from shooting like Florian, but we haven't seen them because maybe with the number of arrows they've shot and they were forced into a certain technique, maybe that was bad on their shoulder and they got an injury and they didn't make it to the team. So this is why you have to be very careful with different techniques, and this is why I applaud Florian's technique in doing this. I'd be fascinated to hear, directly from him as to why he chose that and what his thought process was, but I can clearly see this draw shoulder side is a bit more comfortable. The thing that I wanted to show as well, I've got an overhead here from my website, and you can have a look at this. So it's on the setup section on my website, and what I wanted to show here is the kind of position as you're drawing as well. So if we just scroll back very slightly through the video, just to the start. So again, you can see this trade-off in action. For me, in order to get this slightly shorter pre-draw, you can see I've had to reach forwards with this hand here. So if I get the brush again, you can see I've had to reach forwards here. That's supposed to be a straight line, so we'll get the straight line tool. This here means that I've reached forward with the hand, and I'm keeping, as a choice, I'm keeping this bow arm very straight. It does put some pressure on this shoulder here, but for me this was a good trade-off. I decided this was good. However, you can see on the top view that this is an example of not doing it well, because my hand is so close in here to the bow shoulder, the hand is so close in that this shoulder joint is much more compressed. So again, this particular example shows that, again, this draw hand is further drawn in this example compared to this one here. The bottom view is slightly further forward. So the reason I wanted to show this is it shows you the benefit of having the hand a little bit further forwards, because there's less tension on the string, and it shows you the different ways of doing that. So now if I pause that and go back to here, the reason this is also important is because of something I've mentioned a couple of times before. Doing this allows Florian, if we just move this slightly so we can make it a little bit bigger for you, and we move this to here, drawing in this way allows Florian to position his bow shoulder. So if we go here on the raise, it allows him in this part of the shot to raise up, position his bow shoulder, and then now commit to drawing. And all while doing that, he's kept his hooking really secure. He's kept his connection to his back because of that secure hook, and because he hasn't had to reach forwards too much. And he's able to get his bow shoulder in line before committing to too much string tension. This is the kind of ultimate goal, if you like, of doing it this way, is finding that middle ground between not drawing too early, because if he was to draw too early, if I go back to here now, if he was to draw too early, which I see a lot of archers make this mistake, it's then hard to get this shoulder in line because you've got all that poundage to fight against. But by delaying that and having this shorter draw and having the arm bent, he's then essentially allowed himself to get into line and then draw. So if we just watch that one more time, if we go to here, you'll see that now. So we'll watch it in real time together. Bent arm, gets his front, and then commits to drawing on the draw side. So this is why this is really, really good. And while we're here, actually, I think there's maybe one more angle. There's another angle, I think it's the match that I've got here that I wanted to show. So let's have a look. There's one more angle from the back I wanted to show, but I'm not sure. Yeah, it's this shot. So this shot is really good to show because it shows how he's setting his grip. And this is kind of one of the cons, if you like. So everything has pros and cons, and this is what I wanted to show you today, is there's not one way to shoot, and whoever says that is clearly deluded. But there's pros and cons to everything, and one of the things that's more difficult about this is Florian's hook is very secure and very set. Draw side is a bit more comfortable. Draw shoulder a little bit, I would argue, a little bit less injury risk there. It's just a bit harder to set the bow hand. So an example of that is, if we zoom in here, you can see as he's raising, his bow hand is not set. His thumb is not set, his pressure point is not set. So he kind of raises up. I'm going to play this in half speed for you. Raises up. Let's go through here. It's going to be some slow-mo dramatic walking away, some slow-mo crowds, and then we're going to see Florian slow-mo raising the bow up. But I wanted to show you this because it shows how he then puts his pressure point in the grip and how he gets that solid in the hand. So we're going to see it. Maybe I went too far. So was it before that? So after that, here we go. So let's have a look together. A little bit blurry because of the camera motion, but you can see here, not set yet, raise up, set the hand, push through, direct the pressure point, and now the bow hand position is great. It's just later in the shot than a lot of people normally do. So again, this is the trade-off. There's no perfect way to do it, but this is why I wanted to show Florian's technique, and I think this is a great example of him making a technique that's unique to him, that works for him, and delivers the same results in terms of the key things that I always mention: execution, alignment, able to get to a consistent alignment and full draw position, and then crucially as well, that expansion. So this has been kind of an in-depth look at the draw in particular, and I would encourage, I wouldn't say for everyone to try this because it's quite different in the way to how you draw. I would say if you struggle with your draw shoulder side, if you have injuries, or if you always feel like it's tight, if you struggle with finding your pre-draw, I'm not against people trying this because it's actually quite clever. It's actually, if I go now to Kim Woo-jin, not too dissimilar to how Kim Woo-jin does it. I know this might sound weird, but hear me out. Let's have a look here. I'll zoom out for you so you can see. When Kim Woo-jin raises, his arm is not straight. If his arm was straight here, it would be more like Iwoo Suk's. If his arm was straight, his hand would go from, let's say, this is where his pivot point of his bow is. If his arm was completely straight there and he pushed it out completely, you would probably see his hand on the right blue line. So his arm is clearly not fully straight. And then raises up, and then also look at his hand. This is the thing, if we go here, it's a little bit harder to see from this angle, but watch his bow hand. Again, do you see the similarities here? His hand is not fully set in this position. His thumb is actually a little bit away from the grip here, in this position, at the bottom. Similar to how Florian's was at, if we go back here, at this point, see how the thumb, again, is slightly away from the grip? So again, this is not dissimilar. I don't think most people would, before this video, most people wouldn't have said that these two draws are the same, but actually they have a lot of similarities. You can see Kim Woo-jin raises up, and then now when he aligns, he then fully directs his hand in the grip and the pressure point. So I think this is really, really clever. I don't know how Florian came up with this technique, and I remember shooting against Florian. I actually had the pleasure, I shot against Florian in a semi-final of like a Junior Europa or Junior European Cup in Romania. Many, many years ago, shot against him in a semi-final. He won. Good match, Florian. But even at that point, Florian had this technique from my memory at least. I would have to check that. But I would be interested to know when this kind of style of technique started, what caused Florian to kind of do this method of shooting, because I actually think it's quite genius. So this has been an in-depth video. If you haven't joined my membership already, what are you doing? You need to do that right now, because I'm going to go and record the remaining part of this video, talk a little bit more about Florian's technique, because particularly on his hooking side and that deeper hook, there's some stuff I want to cover there. However, until next time, I'll see you in the next video.